Hello everybody, so good to see you! With December wrapping up, that means we have a whole year of games that we've played to talk about. As you may have seen by now, the GVG crew has been giving you their top 3 games for the year 2022, and I'm here to do the same. We've had a year of franchises taking games into a whole new perspective, using formulas that series aren't necessarily known for, and just really good entries into series that we know and love. And there's a lot to love about the games that I played this year, but I'm only allowed to pick 3, so let's get this going. Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I'm here to make sure you don't forget it because this is a pivotal point for the Pink Puffball. When I played this game, it felt like I was playing a GameCube game out of time, and I don't mean that in any negative way whatsoever. I love the GameCube, but it felt like this title came out many years later than it should have. During the N64 and GameCube eras, most of Nintendo's biggest stars were making the leap to 3D. From Mario and Zelda to Fire Emblem and Metroid, each had a different approach to this transition. Kirby, however, remained a sort of 2.5D hybrid with many of its main adventures landing on handhelds. But this was the first time Kirby truly mixed up conventions of the mainline series by putting him into 3D. Finally, after all this time, and they made it work so well. One of the first things I noticed was this game plays exactly as I expected a Kirby game to play in 3D, and that's a really good thing. It might feel like Kirby and the Forgotten Land happened decades after it should have been made, but it's here now in 2022. It plays well, looks and sounds great, and it's more visually striking than I expected. The game has a recurring theme of man-made structures and buildings, but the different biomes give all these worlds a distinct feel compared to many other Kirby games. Combat seems simple on the surface, but once you learn to work in guarding and perfect dodges, you realize there's a much deeper skill ceiling for you to sink your teeth into. Although having less abilities than your usual Kirby game may seem like a negative, it arguably more than makes up for it by giving abilities with stronger tiers, giving you a sense of progression. There's also these challenge areas that teach and test you on copy abilities, rewarding you with items to upgrade said abilities. And they get wacky, man, like a Space Ranger gun? I felt like I was cheating. I have this feeling that this game might get disregarded for what it is, but again, it's important to look at what it accomplished. It's something that is completely new for the franchise, taking it into a new perspective and applying the conventions that we're used to in a modern day game. For many of us that have played Kirby games before, it just feels really right. We're saying this decades later, but the jump that Kirby made from 2D to 3D has been a very successful one. It's familiar but also fresh enough for longtime fans of this series, as well as being very accessible to new players. All in all, I'm happy that Kirby made this leap and is where he is now. It's been a really good and busy year for him and fans alike. He should get some sleep now, at least until Return to Dreamland Deluxe comes out. Oh great, you get to listen to me talk about this series again, because I'm also putting Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes on the list. Now this is going beyond just being Fire Emblem and an expansion to the world of 3 houses, which arguably has the most fleshed out lore of any Fire Emblem game ever. I've been a big fan of the Warriors series, not only those based on Nintendo IPs, but more so the ones that borrow a significant amount of identity from the series they're based on. Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity, Persona 5 Strikers, and now 3 Hopes, which has done an incredible job of making it just feel like an extension to 3 houses. Much like Age of Calamity, 3 Hopes projects itself as a what-if scenario. What if one particular mercenary survived a conflict that they likely died in during the original 3 houses, and likely by Byleth's hand no less? We explore the butterfly effect that takes the story into 3 wildly different situations. And yes, just like 3 houses, there are 3 distinct paths to choose from after the introductory chapters. There's absolutely no drought of content here. And at this point, I don't think I need to explain the gameplay of a Warriors title. You take on swaths of enemies using a variety of classes and units, and it all feels really good. Each character has a unique skill that sets them apart from one another, and you can branch out to have them be nearly any class that you want. But just like my previous entry on this list, I think it's important to talk about what they accomplished with this title. In truth, sometimes you'll be in cutscenes or spending more time prepping characters than actually being in battle. It might sound like a bad thing to some, and I wouldn't blame you if that turns you away, but at its core, it's almost a Fire Emblem game. The narrative and flow of storytelling matches 3 houses perfectly. From the way you train allies, have lunch with them, give them gifts, go on picnics, and then from prepping your army, forging weapons, going on extra missions that act like optional paralogs that add to the story. All of these weave seamlessly into the world of Fire Emblem, and honestly it makes for a much better paced game than 3 houses. It trims some of the bloat that you get from exploring a massive monastery down to a small camp where you can accomplish everything you need to at a much faster pace. The conversation around 3 Hopes faded kinda quickly and people are just ready for Engage to come out now, but I still wanted to give it a shout out as one of my favorites this year.
Well, you can definitely handle yourself in a fight, Mr. Warrior King.
Good to see your humor is intact, never mind the gravity of the moment.
Gee, I wonder how many people put this on their list. Oh man, where do I even start? Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is the latest entry in the Xeno series, starring a bunch of teens that were trained for war since they were actual children. Half of the main cast wants to kill the other half of the cast shortly after meeting each other, and boy does Monolith Soft run wild with the theme of two warring sides. There's no way I'm spoiling anything about the narrative beyond that, because you deserve to see it unfold for yourself, and what a ride it is. The combat in Xenoblade has been a divisive topic since the first game, but I think this takes the best aspects from the different games, particularly Torna, and cleans it up into a battle system that communicates a lot more coherently with the player. I appreciate being able to change classes for different roles and cycle through different characters. Throughout the story, you also meet guest characters who can grant you their class for the party, and I love that these characters are integral to the story in their own way. Even if their overall impact is minor in the grand scheme of things, the game makes them feel like each one is helping to push the narrative, and you'll always have one of them on your team. Oh, and as Ouroboros, you can fuse together and fight as huge creatures both in regular combat and in chain attacks for some crazy looking flashy battles. You know, the usual Xenoblade stuff. Exploration is also wonderful. I haven't found myself wandering so far off the suggested path to discover what else is out there, whether I'm ready to face it or not, since, well, the last Xenoblade game with Torna. The music is wonderful, the animations are stunning, characters are largely memorable through designs and voice work, and it all just comes together in a way you don't see happen often. If anything, I think there might be some places that feel a little bit too big to explore, or so many side quests that it can become paralyzing. Yet it's hard to argue against them when optional quests, the hero quest in particular, feel so engaging in the overall experience. I hadn't really considered how immersive this series would be until I started to get deep into Xenoblade Chronicles 2. It's just so impressive how the quality of this series has reached a pinnacle and has stayed there for the entire trilogy, at least in my opinion. That just doesn't happen often. Oh, and this game also gave us Uni. Thank you, Xenoblade.
Alright, guess you're all weirdos.
And that wraps up my list. Thanks for watching. We have more videos of the crew's top 3 this year coming out soon. Unless this was the last one, in which case there is no more, and that makes this ending a lot more awkward. If that's the case, then see you next year, till we meet again.